brand new season.
You're listening to Arkansas Preps Weekly on Natural State Sports, your top source for the biggest news in high school sports across Arkansas.
And here we go.
What is up, everybody? Thanks for joining us on episode number 48 of Arkansas Preps Weekly here on the Natural State Sports Network. I'm Kyle Sutherland as we continue our hoops season coverage. Last week, if you tuned in, we had a great conversation with my good friend and in my opinion, the best in the business when it comes to Arkansas high school basketball coverage or just Arkansas high school sports in general with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette's Eric Taylor. A whole lot of fun with that, and talked about a lot of different teams from, of course, our top 10 overall across the state. Very similar. Of course, I do top 25 rankings overall. Eric does top 10 overall, and then 6 teams from each classification in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette there. But we broke down a little bit of that as well as our top teams that have shown that record-wise as well as maybe not record-wise from the teams that they have played. So talked a good bit in discussion about that from all classifications from 6A down to 1A. So want to go ahead and remind everybody, if you have not subscribed already, be sure and hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you prefer to watch, or you can also listen on the audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you do listen, we are there. So want to go ahead and get that out of the way. And also, too, for the remainder, if you didn't listen to the episode last week, pretty much the remainder up until we get to postseason play of these basketball episodes are going to be like what we did with the Arkansas Prep Extra podcast that I was doing this time last year, where we have a coach, one girls and one boys coach on each week. Just kind of talk about the seasons. We'll get into, whatever classification they're in. We'll talk about some of their classes, but just another fun way to get coaches involved and also get multiple different takes from different aspects of basketball, just because I know, listening to me all the time probably won't be as enticing as hearing from some of these coaches. So today on this episode 48, we are going to talk with West Side Greers Ferry coach Keith Cornett. Coach Cornett, of course, was previously at Concord for a long time, came over to West Side and added some key pieces that has been really, to me, by far the best team. I think probably most would agree with this. By far the best team in Class 1A girls basketball, have played a lot of upper class competition. So we'll get into that. And then also in the second segment, we're going to be joined by Harrison boys basketball coach, longtime Harrison coach, David Stahler, who's been with the Goblins, his alma mater, for over 2 decades at this point, and have really been one of the top teams in Class 5. We thought they were going to be coming into the season and have played some really good basketball, particularly in their last 3 games, winning 2 of those by a combined 3 points. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. But that is the lineup for today. We'll go ahead and get started with Coach Cornett from West Side. So looking forward to both of these conversations and hope you enjoy them as well. And we'll go ahead, as I said, get started with Coach Keith Cornett of the West Side Lady Eagles. We're now joined by West Side Lady Eagles coach Keith Cornett. And, Coach, I've got to go ahead and tell you, it still sounds weird saying West Side, Coach, because, even back when I was in high school, you were at Concord. Obviously, you're a native of Concord and have been in the area most of your life between Greers Ferry, Heber Springs, and all those. But how has it been? Other than the incredible run that y'all are on so far, I know that's been good, but how has the transition been up to this point now that we're in the second semester?
It's been easy. It's been good. It's, I think, 19 minutes from my house to West Side and 13 from my house to Concord. So the drive's definitely not a factor. And I was glad I didn't have to move. And I get to stay in this community that I love. And, it takes a while when you start over. I've never liked to start over. I never want to start over. But it's been a good transition. The girls have been really good. And we've played a lot of good teams, and we're just ready to get this stretch run going.
Yeah, and you pointed out starting over, and while you did do that, there was a lot of your girls got some fresh starts as well. I know your daughter is on the team as well, Caitlin Cornett, phenomenal player, covered her since her freshman year, and we'll talk about some others as well. But I think what really, to me, sets y'all apart right now, maybe from some of the smaller classification teams like Dover that's undefeated, Quitman that's undefeated, and you can throw some other really solid squads in there. Y'all are at 22-3 and certainly have played the toughest schedule. Not to say that Dover and Quitman haven't played anybody tough, but the schedule that you have put together, I mean, it's pretty much phenomenal. And I think that one thing that people tend to forget sometimes is, yes, you can schedule these games, but then there's sometimes where the opposing coach might say, well, I'm not really sure that we want to do that or not, because it might not be a good look for them. Well, obviously they knew that regardless of that 1A title beside y'all's name, that you were going to have a really good team. So before we get into some of these matchups, what kind of went into putting that schedule together?
Well, I've been to the state finals twice, and I won one and I lost one. And I can tell you, when you lose that one, it doesn't matter how many games you win. It's all about that last game. So that's what we were looking for, is just go out and play as many good teams as we could play. The people, obviously, in your community want to see that as well. They want to see you playing good teams. And as a coach, or at least I do, I learn more from my losses than I do from wins. So every time you do get beat, you obviously can go back and look and see what you can start focusing on and getting better at.
And some of those teams that you have, there's a whole thing you could look at from beginning to end of just that's very impressive. Whether it's a 5A school, 6A school, but you beat Bergman. I know Bergman is a little bit down compared to their state championship team last year, but still a solid 3A squad nonetheless. Then you look at Mountain View, Dumas, Valley Springs, some of the top 3A teams, and you beat 6A Bryant, 5A Harrison, and 5A Hot Springs Lakeside. Lost to Nettleton by a point. And then you also played North Little Rock. That I know that one didn't go so well, but like you said, it's really just about taking your lumps and really learning some things, not just about yourself as a coach, but your team. But all these higher classifications that you played, some of your top performers, as I mentioned, Keith Cornett, your daughter, and Ashlyn Cossey, both averaging double-digit points right now. Also, some of the ones that come to mind, Laney Gentry, Whitley Goodson, Addie Overturf also came in from Shirley, that is an incredible multi-sport athlete. I know that a lot of these girls, they've played together, whether it be in the summer, and, of course, the small area they've grown up around each other. But talk about the way that they have meshed as West Side Lady Eagles.
Well, that's just, the one thing that we had to talk about once we got there and got going. We always stress is to take good shots and play hard and be unselfish, because, at any point, any of those girls can get 25 a night that we have. So that's just basically it. We've just really stressed sharing that basketball, playing hard, and just being as unselfish as you can be. And we're going to go a long ways if we continue to do that.
And building off of that, I know that really, if anyone that saw the some of the girls that were going to be there this year, whether it be with basketball, softball, anything, they've already won a golf state. I think the girls won the golf state championship, and you knew that you were going to have a good bit of multi-sport athletes enrolled at West Side is what I'm trying to say here. And not to get too far ahead, you're only halfway through the school year, but coming in, again, there's already been one state championship won in the fall. Did you believe that there was a really good chance that this could be a special year for the team in multiple sport, or for the girls in multiple sports?
Absolutely. Coming in, I wasn't sure about golf, but my daughter just kind of picked that sport up not too long ago, and it was great for her to be able to contribute with that. Laney Gentry, she's a sophomore. She's phenomenal golfer, and Addie Overturf coming in. She can compete really well in golf as well. And it's like I told, we're in the middle of basketball season. We're trying to get healthy. It's nice to be in January, and be able to just play 1 or 2 games a week, because December was just brutal on us. You never practiced. It felt like when we came back from Christmas break, it felt like that was the first practice we've had, because we just seemed like we were constantly playing and preparing to play. But yeah, and I've talked to a softball coach. It's nice not to be able to have that responsibility on my shoulders. But I told him, I said, as soon as Christmas gets here, I said, if you want to hit, you want to pitch, get pitchers ready. I'm completely okay with that, because I'm used to being where I coached everything. So we were always preparing for everything. So yeah, it's been great. And we fully expected to be competitive in all these sports, and it's been fun so far.
That was a perfect seg to my next question, because I was going to mention, I know that you coached softball at Concord as well as you did girls and boys basketball. I mean, your schedule was about as loaded as any coach that I cover. But one thing I always do try to ask the smaller, typically the 1 and 2A schools, you don't just coach these. You're also teaching. You're driving buses a lot of times. You're having to paint fit. And I know y'all don't have a football team, but you're having to paint fields or whatever the case may be. Work concession stands. You've done this. That's pretty much all you've ever done is work at the small schools, because you were at Concord for about 2 decades. Talk a little bit about that, about what a coach / teacher, their life is like at a 1A school or 2A school, just having to do so many different things.
Well, it's rough. It really is. But, I coached at Pangburn for 5 years, and then I went to Heber for a couple. But once I got to Concord, I mean, you're right. You're driving buses, and not just to the ball games. You're driving bus routes. You're the number one sub bus driver, so you may have to quit practice right in the middle of it and go hop on a bus and get kids home. And then you're working on, you're the one that works on the baseball and the softball fields. So if it's rained and needs work done, you're the one that does it. And it's grinding, but it definitely has its rewards. And the fact that coaches are sharing kids a lot at these bigger schools, and sometimes that can be a little bit of a hassle. But in a small school setting, I am the coach. So I mean, if you got a problem with me in golf, well, you can't run over to basketball now because I'm over there too. So it's been great. And going to West Side, I'm just basketball. I'm going to help with softball, but I don't have any other responsibilities. And this is my 28th year, and that's been rewarding for me. I've been able to just kind of focus and set back on basketball and get to watch golf. I didn't have to coach golf. I got to watch my kid play. That's been awesome. And in softball, I'm not the head coach there either. So I'm going to be helping with it, but at the same time, you're not responsible for a lot of things. So I get to watch my kid play. I'm looking forward to that.
And talking about getting to watch your daughter play, you said that you're almost 30 years into your career, and I've been fortunate to cover a lot of coaches who have coached their kids, and it's really cool to see, especially the ones that go far and get to a state final or win a state championship. I've had the opportunity to see that many times, but especially at this point in your career, as you're on the back end, you were a phenomenal basketball player yourself, and I know you're pretty good baseball too. But to see your daughter thrive in the way that she is, and a lot of her friends that she's grown up with, for you to have a front row seat to all that, talk about what that's been like.
It's absolutely awesome. And years ago, I talked to Coach Hutchcraft. I was at Guy, and we were playing against him, and I knew he was getting close to retirement. And I just asked him a question. What's the most rewarding thing that through the years that you've had? And he said, getting to coach your kid or your grandkids. He said that's the most rewarding thing that ever came out of it. So, I got to help last year with the high school basketball with Coach Cossey. It's awesome coaching with him. By the way, he's my assistant over there, and our girls are best friends. So it's been good, and he's came over with me to West Side, and he's my assistant. And it's fun. It's incredible to be able to coach, and it took me forever. I coached everybody else's kids and nephews and nieces, and finally get to coach my own kid has been very rewarding.
And if I'm not mistaken, so Luke Cornett, your nephew, he was on that state championship team in 2014, right? So you had a chance to coach him, and he's now at Norfolk coaching girls, but he was on that team, right?
Yes, he was. And he's at Cedar Ridge coaching boys now, and they're ranked number 1.
Okay, see, that shows you how behind. I did not realize that I knew that Cedar Ridge had a coaching change, but I didn't even realize. I knew they were really good, but I also that just shows you how behind I am right now. So he was at Bigelow, then Norfolk, now at Cedar Ridge. So, but that's what I was getting at too, is you've had a chance to coach your nephew, now your daughter. And also too, that 2014 state championship, I wanted to ask you about that because like you said, that was the one that you've had in your career. You've been close to getting to a state final as a player. And then, you got close, and I think it was both 2012 and 2013, you guys made deep runs. Then you won 40 games in 2014 and won that state championship. So just talk about, well, I guess maybe that was about 20 some odd years into your career at that point. Talk about what it was like to finally be able to do that after being close, both as a player and a coach.
Oh, incredible. It was, 2012 was probably the best team I ever coached, and we didn't get it done. And we were so deep that year with the kids that we had on the team. And then 2013, we were really good again and came up one game short. So there was a lot of pressure in 2014 because I thought, at Concord, that might be my last chance. And, everything worked out great. We definitely seeked out people to play during the year. I think we went and played Scranton, who was 25-0, at third place around December. And then right before district tournament, we went down to play Blevins, and they were 32-0, traveled down there and got the win there. And then to finish it out as champions was just something I'll never forget.
And mentioning coaching girls and coaching boys, I've asked this to a few who have had the chance to do that. Are you any different? Now, I know the same expectations are there as far as what you demand and all those different things, but are you maybe a little bit different with the girls than you are the boys? Or are you just the same old Coach Cornett that you always are?
I would say I'm different.
Okay.
It's winning is still the same, and you're trying to win and do things, but you just have to be a little bit different with them. I coached girls my first year, and then I switched to boys and coached boys forever. And then I helped out a couple years there where we were looking for a coach at Concord and coached a couple girls teams. But at the end of the day, it's about winning and getting your kids to play hard. And whether it be boys or girls, you just got to figure out what that is. And that's just basically the difference. But I would say I'm a little bit different.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, actually, you're one of the first, I think, that has actually said that. Most of them are usually, and it's a question that I've almost thrown out because normally I get, I'm the exact same pretty much. But no, it's good to have a little bit of different answers here and there. But talking about your career as a player, now you were a great two. Now it was just baseball and basketball that you played, or did you do some other stuff when you were a student and athlete at Concord?
Well, that's all we had at Concord.
Okay, gotcha. I was about to say, I figured that was about, probably the two sports that you could pick from, but great basketball player there, then went on to play in college, and one very familiar coach that you played for that many, especially around Arkansas, would know is Buzz Williams, of course, who is now at Texas A&M. Actually, one of my favorites. I followed him since he was well before at A&M in the SEC. But you got to play under him when he was an assistant at UT Arlington, and has done a great job pretty much everywhere that he's been. Just a great dude. It really seems like just a great person overall. So that was kind of I know that maybe at that time you didn't realize he was going to become what he has become. But talk about just playing, being under his tutelage. He was a very young coach at that time as an assistant, but really just getting to play under him but during the time that he was an assistant at UT Arlington.
It was great. Obviously, it's like you said at the time, all these big-time coaches that make it when they start out, I don't think anybody thinks they're going to be what they become. But Buzz was very fiery. That's what I remember about him. Very motivational, and he does motivational speeches and stuff like that now. Great guy. Probably, I think he was in Oklahoma doing junior college. I think he was assistant in Oklahoma, and then when I went to Arlington, he got hired that same year that I went there as assistant coach. I have went and listened to him speak once, and I was going to go visit with him afterwards, but as he was speaking, he said, "Guys, I don't have enough time for anything." He said, I've got to go get on a plane. I got to go somewhere else as soon as this is over with. And he left his number for everybody in that gym to have his personal number. And I just texted him, and he said, "Oh yeah, the shooter from Arkansas." So Buzz was, like I said, that was probably he was not much older than me, at the time. So I would say if I had to describe Buzz, I would say very, very motivational, very fiery as well.
And I know that probably the one number that coaches typically don't care about, at least most of them, is the amount of wins that they have. And if I'm not mistaken, you're teetering on the brink. I think you've coached in around 1,000 games in your career. You're teetering somewhere between like the 650 and 700 mark. Just looking at your career overall, I just asked you about Coach Buzz Williams. Who have been some other ones maybe in Arkansas throughout your career in high school that you've either just you've had some great battles with, but has also been maybe one or two that you can think of who have been great mentors to you?
Well, I would say Robert Ross for one. Robert Ross I did my student teaching. When I got to the end of my playing career, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was playing basketball. That's all I knew. And, but I did my student teaching at Real Special, and Steve Ross and Robert Ross was the girls and boys coach there. And I can't tell you how much that I learned in one semester there from those guys, and about getting kids to play hard. And I would say, those two guys, Coach Jerry Thomason at North Ark, still got a lot of great quotes from him. Lynn Harris, he's retired now, but, used to coach at Wonderview for years. He's been a big support of mine. And Scott Willock, he sat on the bench with me, I don't know, 8 to 10 years probably at Concord, has been a principal at the same time. He taught me what hard work is. And I went to him for a lot of questions. I mean, this guy helped me out a lot. He's a guy that would drive a bus to school, be principal all day, drive a bus home, get in his personal vehicle and drive to the game and sit on my bench with me, and then repeat it the next day. And, I would say those guys, Robert and Steve Ross, Jerry Thomason, Lynn Harris, and Scott Willock have been I've learned so much from all those guys.
Final question, and it's definitely an important one. So I don't know if you and I have talked about it much, but I consider myself an honorary resident of Greers Ferry. My parents have lived, or they've had a house in on top of the one in North Little Rock in the Higdon Greers Ferry area for about 30 years now. So grew up on that lake. What is your favorite place to eat in the area? There's Bentley's, there's Jansen's, there's plenty of others when you get into Heber Springs and all that. What's one? And I'm not trying to get you in trouble or anything, but what is maybe one or two of your favorite places to eat in that area?
Well, most people think of Bentley's and Jansen's, and they're both great. They're both great spots. I've eaten both places a lot. I would say those two probably.
Okay.
But the people there, I'm telling you, the people there in Greers Ferry have been so great to me. The community's been great. The administration and all the teachers have been great. It's been a great transition for myself. I can tell you that, and my kid. My kids had a great time. That's
great to hear. You can't beat that. Well, Coach, really appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun following your team this year. I know y'all are far from done, but as you said at the beginning, it's even though you're familiar with the area, it's definitely a big change after 2 decades at the same spot. So, no, it's been a lot of fun for you, and definitely look forward to watching the rest of the year play out.
And thank you for what you do for the sports and the kids and the state of Arkansas.
Absolutely. Well, up next, we talk with Harrison boys basketball coach David Stahler. Don't go anywhere. We're now joined by Harrison boys basketball coach David Stahler. And Coach, a pleasure to have you on. I know that things have been really crazy for you guys, particularly in 2 of the previous 3 games as you've gotten into conference play. Hopefully your heart rate's gone down a little bit, at least as we record here on a Sunday, since Cole Cecil hit that blocked that shot to seal the Alma game the other night. But been very wild, to say the least, for you guys as you started 5A West play, but gone well so far, and really just, especially once you get to this time of year, it's just really about surviving.
It is. It really is. We expected to have, especially the Mountain Home game, that's a rival game. Both teams give it, their best shot, and they really came back, and we had a double-figure lead in the third quarter, and they got rolling, which I knew they would, and matter of fact took the lead, and we were able to. This team has a way of, they just don't panic. momentum was really going to Mountain Home side, and the guys were really, really solid down the stretch. And when you lose a big lead like that and you fall down by 4 with 3 minutes to go, a lot of teams would fold, but this group doesn't do that.
I want to talk about Mountain Home real quick because, like you said, it is a rivalry game. I know you always look forward to playing each other, but the Hangar, it doesn't matter if Mountain Home – I know Mountain Home boys are not quite what the girls are right now, but it doesn't really matter what kind of team they have. It is always an extremely tough environment. You've played there many, many times. So talk about how maybe that arena in particular might compare to some of the others.
Oh, it's just you can feel the energy when you walk in the building, And, they're always waiting for us, when we go. They'll have different things going on. I think one year they had a deal where the whole student body would get free ice cream if we missed a free throw in the fourth quarter or something like that. And our guys took it upon themselves not to miss a free throw, and fortunately didn't. And they didn't get their ice cream. So you have little things like that going on, and their student body is really good. And it's a fun place to go play, and really fun when you win.
And it's very common. It doesn't matter what the sport is. When you have a game like that, so Hayden Martin hits a layup with 2-3 seconds left, right there before the buzzer, maybe right at the buzzer. And it's very common when you have games like that to maybe have not necessarily a letdown where you lose, but maybe not play as good the next game. But you guys, like I said at the beginning, were lights out against Farmington. And I think that was actually at Farmington, if I'm not mistaken. 14 3-pointers. I mean, really just came out shooting it lights out. So did you see maybe with the few days leading up to that game that you guys could end up having another really great performance? Obviously this one was much more comforting, I guess, because you had a 20.1 advantage or 21-point advantage. So did you really see that coming, just because you got some great shooters on your team, but especially coming off of that Mountain Home game the way that it ended, did you see that happening the way it did against Farmington?
Well, it goes back a little bit to last year. That Mountain Home game was important for us because when you go back to last year, we were 7-7 in conference and had a 19-win team, and we have everyone back. Well, against Mountain Home, they hit a offhand half-court shot at the buzzer to beat us in one game. In the other game at Mountain Home, we were up 9 with about a minute to go in the third quarter, and they went on a 9-0 run, and it was even from there, and they ended up beating us in overtime. So we had both games pretty much in hand and lost them. And we had other games like that last year. I had probably 5 games where we were leading late in the game and we lost them. And so I felt like, that game kind of almost like we released some demons, you could say. You could see a look in their eye like, hey, it's going to turn our way this year. And that's important mentally to a team. And I think that carried over into the Farmington game.
And you talked some about last year. I want to mention a little bit about that because the 2023 season, you guys went to the semifinals, and I know the last week of, I'm thinking of this year. The last week of December, you guys were 13-2 coming into this season. But when you made that semifinal run and you fell to Lake Hamilton, it was a 12-4 start, and then you got into I guess you got into conference play and things the wheels kind of fell off a little bit. Like you said, you lost some close games, but you had a feeling that things were going to be a little bit, because I know that 22 or the 23 team, you had a good bit coming back from last year, and you still got some of those 25 or a good bit of those 25 seniors now to the 2025 seniors now. So I know you had talked about at Big Miller Media Days this past October, and then of course I got a chance to see you guys play back in June. But what was really just the message of, yes, we let a lot get away from us last year, did not make the postseason after making a Final Four the previous season, and to know that this could be a really special year?
Well, we knew the importance of you just don't show up just from the previous year and beat people. We knew we were good, and I think we had to go through last year to get to where we are right now. I think our guys know that, you can't let down in any conference game and at any point during the game, and they're 4-quarter games. And I think we had to learn that to even though as hard as it was, because we felt like we were a top 4 team, but we had to learn that to get to where we are now.
And then coming into this year, I had them flip-flopped a second ago. So You're the last week of December. You're 13-2. You drop those 2 games to Carthage, Missouri, and then a really good Bentonville West team that I think Trent Lloyd has done a really good job with. In his first season there. What was kind of the message? And I know you've been in those situations plenty of times as a coach where you might be on a little bit of, win streaks happen just like losing streaks do. And so was the message kind of, okay, we're about to start an entirely new year as far as literally the calendar flipping, but also getting into conference play where it does really matter?
It was. It was kind of like the Carthage game and the Bentonville West games. Bentonville West, we led by 7 in the fourth quarter at Bentonville West. And so that kind of and they did a great job coming back, but I think that was a great thing to happen going in, and that's why the Mountain Home game was so important, because we were able to finish that game, and where we didn't finish Bentonville West, and then Farmington, moving forward to Farmington, that's the first game since before Christmas we really shot it well. Shot 42% from the 3. In the Mountain Home game, we had to grind. We shot 17% from the 3-point line. So we had to really grind to get that one. But we started seeing guys they started seeing the ball go in the hole in the Farmington game. I think that's going to go a long way moving forward.
And let's talk a little bit about just the, or I guess a decent bit about just your classification in general. You look at the 5A Central, and for the last few years, Maumelle and Valonia have mostly controlled that. Then you add Little Rock Christian to the mix this year. It just makes it, and of course, Little Rock Christian and Maumelle play this week. The East, it's been competitive. Really, it seems like since the beginning of time. You look at the Marions, the Valley Views, the Nettletons. Those are kind of West Memphis has made a big push this year and well improved. The South is what it is. It's been the last 2 5A state finals have had 2 South teams in there. And then you look at the West, and I will say that I've been just as guilty of this as anybody. It's probably a conference, especially over the past few years, it's been a little bit overlooked. As I mentioned, you guys were a really good team in 2023, but I don't know how many maybe predicted at the beginning of the state tournament that you guys were going to get to the semifinals. And it's just one of those that it seems like every year there's 1 or 2 teams that really shocks and maybe makes a little bit deeper run in the postseason. But that's what makes it fun, though, to me. You look at, of course, Russellville, under Coach Greg Chenault, year 2. Greenwood has probably been, for the most part, we expected, you guys to be up there at the top, but I think Greenwood has probably been one of those that's made a little bit over this past few weeks, especially could really be maybe one of those teams like what Alma did last year, where they got off to a little bit of a struggling start and then got hot at the back end. So I say all that to say that, your conference, sometimes it could be a little bit of a mirage in a good way, meaning, well, there might be some that have to figure some things out during the regular season, but by late February or so, that's when it typically gets turned around.
It does. And this year, 2 years ago, our league wasn't as deep. This year, I feel like our league is real deep. I don't think there's no game you can look at and say, they're a little bit, they're not as good as the teams at the top or whatever. I think it's really close, and it's close because I think there's more quality teams. So I think that's going to be a big challenge for. So that's the big change from a couple years now. A couple years ago, our league was a little down, but we heard the talk on the 5A West, and that kind of helped our guys that rally cry kind of, in the state tournament, and they were able to prove that they weren't the weak conference champion coming in, and that meant a lot to them, and so but this year our league is good, but I'll tell you what, you look at the top of all the other conferences, and there's some really good teams out there. Should be a lot of fun come state tournament time.
Yeah, no doubt. And admittedly, I think if you dig back plenty, you probably find some clips of me saying some, not saying mean things by any means, but maybe just not giving you guys the respect that we were the other conferences. But hey, it's fun to be wrong sometimes. It wouldn't be very fun doing this if you weren't wrong at times. But looking at some of the 6A programs that you guys played, you beat Conway, you beat North Little, which I think North Little Rock, the best is yet to come for them. I think that they have, especially with the way that they played. I was actually watching I was watching you guys' game with Alma Friday night, and I was watching Jonesboro, North Little Rock, and they got within 2 of Jonesboro, is, I think the top ranked team, regardless of any poll that you look at right now. And, you played those teams. And then, as we talked about, you lost the heartbreaker to Bentonville West. So, having played, and Conway's got Ben Lindsay, their first-year head coach there, that had a phenomenal run at Magnolia. Mm-hmm. So just from those, and you also beat Rogers Heritage. I forgot to mention them. So some of the 6A teams, the near handful that you've played so far, just kind of talk about, what your experiences are with just seeing them.
Well, it was real good for us. I don't know. I think we played North Little Rock. It's been 5 or 6 years ago. I think they had Moses Moody then. We played him in the Fayetteville tournament. So we don't get to play them very often, but we knew that this team needed to see some of that. We needed to see North Little Rock. We needed to see Bentonville West. We needed to see those teams to prepare us for everything, because, you're going to see so many different types of teams if you get to the state tournament. And our guys know that the variety of teams that we've seen, we can handle anything. So they'll have great confidence playing anyone that we're matched up with, and that was the whole meaning behind that. It was a great experience to you don't get many chances to beat a Conway and North Little Rock in the same season. Little Rock Parkview, and I know Parkview's had a rough time this year, but that was a good win for us too. And you don't get that very much, and that's when these guys started knowing, hey, we can beat about anybody. So those games were really good for us and in our psyche. We also played Nixon, Missouri, who's unbelievable. They're like a 6A school, and really had a chance to beat them down the stretch in the Rogers tournament. And we see them a lot in the summers, and we knew how good they are too.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about your team here. So I know that most people, when they think of Harrison, and really in the last year or two, maybe even 3, Ryder Scribner, I know, has been a major key piece for you, averaging about 18 points per game right now. And think about Hayden Martin, Cole Cecil, Maddox Bell. Those are some of the ones that really come to mind. But who's maybe a couple of guys, 1 or 2 or 3 that I didn't mention in there that's really performed big for you this year, whether the stats show it or not?
Oh, well, you got Jackson Kreiner is one. He's kind of moved into the starting lineup here. He was quarterback on the football team. Took him a little while to get going. But he's a 6'3" guard who adds another dimension to us. Great passer, long, another guard out on the floor. I mean, we have so many guards we can put out on the floor that are good size, and he's been playing well of late. We also have Chance Lorenz, who started half the year for us. He's about 5'7", plays with a big heart, and he's a knockdown 3-point shooter. And he was key against Farmington as well. He had some big threes, and he's a junior. He's really coming on for us. And then we have a big kid we bring off the bench, Lucas Paul, who's about 6'4", great footwork in the post, can score, strong, big body, excellent in our offense as well. Fits real well with the other guys when he's in there. So he can score. He'll do the dirty work. He'll set some bone jarring screens, things like that, to get people open. And those guys have been very key for our basketball team.
I wanted to ask you, so it's kind of a lost art of staying places for whatever the reason may be. It's staying at places for long periods of time as a coach. Now, I know you look at yourself, the amount of time that Tommy Tice was at Harrison. I know he kind of split time from Huntsville and Harrison, but you don't see that a lot, at least not near as much as you used to in today's age. And you've been at this for, not to age you too, but you've been coaching for over 40 years now, right? And you've only had 2 jobs.
Yeah, this is my, I think, 35th year in senior high. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
And been to 2 places, Mena and here. And no, I'm not big on change. So, but I look at it as a buy into the program, buy into the kids, buy into the school, the community. And I think it's rewarding just to just have group one after another coming through and taking pride in the program and the community and the school. And both places I just love greatly and took a lot of pride in coaching at those schools, and they both treated me real well, and just no reason to leave.
And one of the things I've interviewed, obviously, many coaches in multiple sports. And I think probably the common denominator that I hear with all, obviously, great kids, great assistants, great parents, the whole 9 yards. But I think one that maybe gets overlooked to the outside world is a great administration. And, you know, obviously that makes a lot of team. I mean, that kind of keeps coaches places or they decide to go elsewhere. I've heard that that's for many firsthand cases that can be one of the reasons. So talk about just the support in administration that you can talk about both at Mena as well as what you've had at Harrison.
Well, I have a story I like to tell a lot of times. When I was first hired as the senior high coach at Mena, when I was a young coach, the superintendent there was Lonnie Barron, a highly successful football coach at Mena and a legend there. And he was our superintendent. And I was just hired, and we'd played a local team in a game, and they were real good. It was Wicks. And they were good. I believe they were a state runner-up in their classification that year. And they had come to Mena. It was a big rivalry, and early in the season, and they beat us. And the next day, you know, as a young coach, I'm in there practicing, and I'm down, and he walks in with 2 or 3 other people. I can't remember who was with him. I just knew that he's the boss, and my eyes went to him, and he looked real serious, and he walked in during practice, and he said, Coach, tough loss last night. I said, yes, sir. He said, I just want you to know you're doing everything right, and just kept on walking right out. And, you know, that did more for that young coach, than anything. And that really lifted me up and helped my confidence in knowing that, you know, he had my back. And that's the kind of administration you like to work for. And I've been fortunate to work for him. And Quentin Taggart was a principal there that was outstanding, and as well as other administrators. And here at Harrison, Tommy Tice, he hired me to come to Harrison, and I have a close relationship with him still today. And he was very supportive of me, and I'll always appreciate him, and as well as so many other administrators. Our current principal, Jay Parker, has been very supportive of me as well. And like you said, I've had some really good junior high coaches and assistant coaches through the years that have really at times made me look real good.
And we'll wrap it up here and kind of a little bit of a piggyback off from that. And I might have actually asked you this at media days as well, because I usually do ask this with tenured coaches. But, you know, obviously we live in a pretty crazy landscape today. You know, there's people moving around and different things, but, you know, that's just kind of part of sports, is you have to adapt, and that's just the way that it goes. And what are some ways that you, since the beginning of your coaching career up until now, whether that's maybe being a little bit calmer than you used to be, or, you know, just kind of figuring out different schematic things to adapt to the game, what are some of the ways that you've really adapted that you would say throughout your coaching career in all these years?
Well, I think the number one is having good relationships with the kids. I think is the biggest thing. You can't get separated from them. You got to maintain your relationships, because the business is all about relationships, and that's the most important thing. And I am thankful for every player I've had in all the years I've been coaching, either from Mena or Harrison. They've all been so good, and I've been blessed to work with them. But I think as far as schematic, I'm really doing a lot of the same things I did, 34, 35 years ago. You just change it up some through the years. I remember I'll never forget my first game I coached at Mena as a senior high coach. We played Fort Smith Southside. Mickey Johnson was the coach there, and he was known for outstanding defenses. Coach Stuart Adams, who's coaching there now, and he was on that team, and that was my first win as a coach. I'll never forget it. We won 37-34. You just don't see that anymore. Now that's a half court game. That's just, that's kind of the way it was played. And we ran a lot of the similar things we're running now, but it's changing. It's changed now. And we've adjusted our style of play to more of a full court game, but still doing the same thing schematically. So I think it's just changing with time and learning your personnel. I think you have different personnel every year, and coaches sometimes say, well, hey, I'm going to run this or I'm going to run that no matter what. Well, you adjust it to your personnel, and that I feel like that's what I've been able to do, is adjust what I do to whatever personnel that I have and try to make it work.
We've been talking with Harrison boys basketball coach David Stahler. Coach, really appreciate the time, and best of luck along the rest of the way. What do we got, about, I guess, a month and a half left in the season? It's crazy. Mm-hmm. how fast it all goes. But actually, I tell you what, I do have one more that I kind of a little bit off the wall here. So you guys at Harrison, you got one of the most unique mascots. It's one of Goblins. When I think about Ozark Hillbillies, there's maybe about 4 or 5 throughout the Dardanelle Sand Lizards. The Goblin it's such a unique thing. And I've seen things, y'all's Facebook pages do a great job of talking about the history of the mascot throughout the years and everything. That's just one thing I wanted to ask you about, because how is that? That's one thing that I know a lot of people take a lot of pride in, because yes, there's a lot of tigers, there's a lot of lions, bears. We've heard the whole shebang. But that's pretty cool to have your own unique one. I'm sure there's others around the country, but you being an alumnus of Harrison, I know you take a lot of pride in that, but it's just something pretty cool when you've got a unique mascot like that.
It really is. It really is. We're the only one. And and the guys take a lot of pride in it, the community, the school. Now the look of the Goblin has changed through the years. It's kind of funny to see that, but it's just it's special, and they have a saying here: once a Goblin, always a Goblin, and that's the truth. And you have got people. My brother lives in Virginia Beach, and he takes great pride in being a Goblin. He always wants Goblin stuff. Christmas, send me a Goblin hat, send me a Goblin shirt. Likes to show it off to people who have never heard of it, and they see it, and they're all just amazed at it, and it's just it's special, and we take a lot of pride in it.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Well, Coach, really appreciate your time. Had a lot of respect for you. I know this is actually, like, other than media days and emails, this is the first time we've had a full-on conversation. But always had a lot of respect for you for years, and look forward to watching you guys for the rest of this season.
All right, appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Well, that will do it for episode, 48 of Arkansas Preps Weekly here on the Natural State Sports Network. Make sure you subscribe. YouTube, also, as well as the audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We are there. But that will do it again for this week. We will catch you next week on episode 49.